Hello and welcome to the Literature Podcast. Today's story, The Problem with Pitchblende. The dragon demands his tribute of gold. Sure, it makes the miners toil day in and day out in a cursed gold mine. Causes a coal shortage because there's no one to mine the coal. But it's better than the dragon's wrath, which would lead to the destruction of the town. A knight then slays the dragon and in his shiny enameled armor returns the gold from the town. Turns out that knights only slay dragons if they have captured princesses. The knight says it is some legal thing. Innocent until proven guilty, he says. Was the dragon innocent when he made them unearth gold from a cursed mine, exposing them to a fatal curse? They wonder. Of course, the knight has to be an infuriating do-gooder. He says a very nice wizard helped him on the quest. He promises to send him over to look into the problem. The wizard is flamboyant, his jacket covered in glittery blue swirls, and the pins that fasten his jacket and cloak together, a stunning eye-searing gold. His trousers flare out at the ankles and are cut from the same glittery blue cloth. The pink, blue, and white ribbons are wrapped around his staff. He's not the wizened old wizard that they expected. He's surprisingly young and looks even younger. His name is Axis. The first thing he notices when he enters town is that everyone talks fast. They can't slow down. Also, their farts seem to be musical. Everyone belts out a few notes of a folk song when the diarrhea comes. He suspects that's part of the curse as well. When he stares into the cavernous depths and the precipices that could shoot him down, he discovers he was right. The curse is relatively harmless. He casts one spell after another till there are no traces of magic in the mine. He's exhausted. He climbs back up, declares the curse gone, and goes home. A few months later, a court summons from the Wizard's Council lands on his doorstep. He stands for hours in a dingy underground courthouse, trying to explain that he did not find any traces of magic in the mine. Did you check for a cloaking spell? The judge asks. Of course. He is a wizened old wizard with a beard and a hat and a proper honest-to-goodness robe. His mindset is as typical as his outfit, and he clearly looks down on independent young wizards being called in to solve problems. No, but Axis stammers out. Not even a sparkle could be detected in that mine. For incomplete and fraudulent curse removal, false declarations to any and all parties affected by said curse, and going to a town solely based on word-of-mouth invitation, the Wizard Council now sentences Axis Dexterous to banishment from the realm, along with a restraining order regarding Pitcherhurt Town, wherein the defendant will not be permitted to visit Pitcherhurt Town for any reason whatsoever or contact its people henceforth. The gavel was struck, the judgment was passed, and with the Wizard's Council's efficiency, Axis knew he would only lose his face and credibility everywhere. His only option was going off-world. He sat on a bench outside the courtroom with his head in his hands as everyone filed out. Their chatter was meaningless. He had lost everything, so why was everyone appearing so cheerful and righteous? Someone magics up a tissue from their staff and hands it to him. He lets a shaky thanks pass his lips. You know, if you present a solution to the cursed mine, they might overturn your sentence, the kind-faced jury member tells him. She pats him on the shoulder and walks away. He has an idea. On his last night home, he uses up all of his energy to scan for a world where mines have similar stuff in them. Thankfully, he finds one. So, with a final glance at his home, packed away and hidden with a cloaking spell, ready to live in when he returns with a solution, he leaves for this world called Earth. He lands inside something he thinks is a house, but he has used up so much energy that he barely makes it to the bed before he passes out. Polaris comes home to the pink glow of dawn and a strange man sleeping in her bed. She sighs. grabs her ex-girlfriend's blowtorch and stirring rod as a weapon and pokes him in the eye. Who are you? She deadpans. The stranger looks up sleepily and swats at her hands, almost like they are some sort of pure insect. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake up here, he says sleepily. He looks so apologetic that something stirs in her heart. I just asked who you were, she says plainly, her tone softer now. Axis, my name is Axis, he says. Polaris, she introduces herself. Belatedly realizing that her blowtorch may look threatening, she sets it down on the bedside table. She keeps the stirrer though. Would be useful to poke him with. I'm really sorry. I lost my way. Where were you going? She looks at his clothes. They're quite outlandish. He was carrying an honest to goodness staff. Were you going to Comic Con? Don't worry, I won't laugh. It's a long story. Oh, I just came home. I have plenty of time, she said. Her concern giving way to sheer stubbornness and her usual instinct to just know things. She was going to find out what this guy was doing in her house, no matter what it took. I failed, he started. He wasn't sure what words to use. He had just woken up in a new world and didn't know how things worked. Pretty sure you didn't mess up that bad. People died and He got the feeling that the word banished would be seen as a bit dramatic. Thrown out, he said. So I assume if it wasn't your fault? She asked. Even if it was, she wasn't going to judge him. She had her fair share of literal skeletons in the closet, even if it was more like a chest of drawers. I think the trouble was there before I went and tried to solve it, he says unsurely. He was being so vague that it made Polaris want to scream. But she held her ground. She was a scientist. It was her job to prod stuff until it revealed information about itself. But this wasn't some rock or chemical or substance. It was a person. What was the problem related to? She said, the itch in her skin making her voice snappy. A gold mine in a little town. That piqued her interest. I happen to know about gold, she said, even if that knowledge involved dissolving gold rings from a jewelry store, because the owner was an absolute asshole. There was this... He wasn't sure if dragons existed here, so he pushed on. This megalomaniac who demanded that a certain amount of gold be given to him every year. Due to the gold mining, the village faced problems. They faced a coal shortage because no one was there to work in the coal mines. Their people were dying. All other trade ground to a halt because they were so scared of him. A few friends of mine took him down. When they returned the gold, they saw problems. People getting diarrhea, people fainting, people not being able to work to their full capacity. They called me in to fix it. Lots of people thought I was too young for the job, too unqualified. I tried to fix the mess as best as I could, but I couldn't. They fired me and put out a restraining order. He said it almost in one breath, and she almost felt his frustration and disdain toward the law and corporations in general. Maybe I could show you different mines in the towns around them. You can tell me which one's familiar. Till then, do you want something to eat? She figures he's hungry if he has traveled this far, though she still doesn't know how he got into her house. I would. I'd like something to eat, that is, he says, getting up from the bed and smoothing his jacket. What's with the outfit, by the way? Took a lot to love the man I am, and I wanted to make it public, he says simply. She understands. It took a lot of time for her to love herself as well, and she expressed it by being a mad scientist. Anyway, here's a sandwich. She handed him yesterday's stir-fry, but sandwiched between two slices of bread, hoping he wouldn't notice it was yesterday's stir-fry sandwiched between two slices of bread. It's wonderful, thank you very much, he said. She wonders what he has been eating if he thinks her stir-fry is wonderful. She has a presentation ready within minutes. As she goes through the slides, explaining the contents of mines around the world that he knows, she arrives at pitchblende. Something flickers in his face. The mine looks like the mine in his world. He nods frantically from where he's sitting. He doesn't know very much about this type of rock, and he's afraid to ask because she may laugh at him or ask questions about where he came from. Plenty of people did that when he asked questions, so he didn't. Would you like to visit the mine? He asked instead, so he could wrench open her mind to the possibility of interworld travel. She figured that if they could travel between worlds to talk to each other, it would be easier to solve the problem. Where is he taking her? She doesn't know him, except for the fact that he's called Axis. But the possibility of a huge supply of pitchblende is too exciting to resist. Yes, I would, she said, and packs her jigger counter, a few extra sets of clothes, and comes back out. How are we going? She asks. Axis abruptly takes her hand and she feels a sudden jerk. When Dots has stopped dancing in front of her vision enough for her to see, she notices she's in a grassy clearing. Medium size, average, nothing special about it. What she's not prepared for is to see Axis on his knees, frantically sobbing. He gives Polaris time to settle while he looks for his house. It was his first time teleporting after all. He undoes the cloaking spell. He tries to summon the house, even looks for it manually. He even tries to scan the area under the ground. Nothing. Everything's gone. His life's work, his hope, and his identity. His knees buckle to the ground in shock. And that's how Polaris sees him now. A scared, shocked, distraught man who appears to be searching for something using methods she can't understand. Has the mine been closed? It wouldn't be possible. The trees wouldn't exist. But she still took out her jigger counter and checked. Nothing. You fine? She asked stonelessly. Axis ignored her. It didn't matter whether he was fine or not. He pulled himself together and decided to explain how things worked. So, you're probably wondering where you are right now and how things work. So, let me explain. Magic is there. It exists. It's a fact of our lives, as omnipresent as this, what you call technology is for you. And just as some people from your world call magic a fantasy, something that doesn't exist and something that only imagination can conjure up, our people hold the same views about this science. And because of this, a wizard council formed. They rule the known world with an iron fist, a closed mind and pride that has made them functionally blind. When a problem is not magical, they pretend it doesn't exist. Wow, that's fucked up. That's no way to run something, and how have they not lost the respect of every single damn person on this planet? She cries out heatedly. Because people don't know much. They lead simple lives and it makes them happier. But someone else has to bear that weight. Their simple lives in small worlds are made possible. And someone is blissful in their ignorance because knights and wizards everywhere are working tirelessly to keep it that way. Someone else's world is small because it's made to be that way. That's not fair, she starts, but he silences her. The bad ones, I think they just crack from the pressure. Or maybe they want to control the lives of others, and many times it does come from good intention. And that's what scares me. Why? Because if you have good intentions, then you're convinced you're doing good things. You don't look before you leap, and then you leap into a place worse than the one between the burning fire and the deep sea. He was right. She thought it was rather like not looking left and right while you crossed out a busy road. But it was time to see what the problem was. Not ruminate on the philosophy behind what made Axis face such a fate. When she asked for the address, he handed her a piece of paper. "Have a restraining order, remember?" he said with a sardonic smirk. When she turned to leave, however, he asked her a question. Can you do me a favor? What is it? She asked. When you go there, would you please visit the market? Get me something to hide who I am? Don't tell them I sent you. And one more thing. Please don't tell me what everyone is saying about me. His voice cracked on the last request. She understood the please don't believe those things that went unsaid. She had known him only for 2 days, but she would take that over the propaganda and rumors any time. The mine is closed off. It has some sort of magical barrier around it. Lucky that the magic that mostly doesn't apply to her. She can sneak in with ease. One look at it, and the place is full of pitchblende. She takes out the gauger counter. The dial won't spin. It's not working. She kind of expected this, but she wasn't prepared for the reality. Was this how Axis felt when he landed up in her house? And that too, without an explanation given to her? She checks the counter from inside and outside the field. How does ionizing radiation even work in a magical setting? Instruments like a gauger counter malfunction, that much was evidence. But she still had to double check. Then she remembered the errand that Axis had sent her on. She went to the market, searched for something with a hood, and she may have promised not to tell him what people said about him, but she wasn't above eavesdropping. She stops for a drink at a place that makes her cooking look awesome, and her ears bleed when she hears what people are saying about him. She brought a hooded cloak, big enough to use as a blanket if needed. She didn't say a word, and she didn't tell him what happened. People hadn't stopped getting affected by the radiation. The Wizard Council blamed Axis. And thus the people blamed Axis, conveniently ignoring the fact that the problem was worse before he visited. She really hated the council now. They slept against the tree. The cloak expanded to shelter both of them. In the early hours of the next morning, he wakes her up to formulate a plan. They are going to bleed the Wizard Council and try and transport the pitchblende off-world. When they set off, Polaris saw magic working its charms and making everything easier. She was sufficiently awed. But Axis' words kept haunting her. It was too much pressure. The Wizards' Council is emblazoned with the letters WC. And it makes her think of a water closet. Does it even exist? Who knows? I come from a world that has containment procedures for the type of substance that the mine in the world conceals. It's dangerous. That's exactly why I want it, she says. She thinks they're idiots. They try everything. Axis is getting more and more frazzled by the minute, she can see. So she maintains her cool for him. When they refuse to cave in, however, she loudly swears, "Fuck this! Axis, we're going." She grabs open the doors that were not meant to be open. Grabbing his hand, he runs through the hallways, her heart pumping madly. Can you give me something that corrodes everything it touches? She asks, when they're pressed up against a notator. Well, there's a potion, but it can be hard to get your hands on. Give me. Then they race down the opposite direction, muttering something in a language she can't understand. He opens the door to reveal two bags. She grins. She's always been good with acids. Hiding 2 vials of the thing in her lab coat, they made their way down the hall. The feel of glass in her pockets once again is strangely comforting. She slouches as she follows him, the hunch in her shoulders coming naturally to her like some instincts. Wizards chase after them, but Axis keeps them at bay while allowing her to get to the mine. She takes off, hiding her face with this cloak while hanging off the trade doors. She doesn't know if Axis can hold them back or at least delay them significantly. She doesn't know what to do if they come after her. She just has 2 small vials of corrosive liquids in her pockets and a goal to get to the ore and the fuck out of here. She waits at the mine, hiding behind the rocks. The radioactivity may affect her, but in her career as her scientist, she has honestly lost the ability to give a fuck. Axis arrives, his hair windswept, his clothes a mess, and starts working on the magical shield. His brow has a sheen of sweat all over it, and he's breathing hard. Polaris waits. She watches, and then she sees two dots in the horizon. Are you finished? They're almost here, she shouts. He's too tired to speak, so his silence answers her instead. She readies the stirrers first. The two dots, of course, are staff thumpers. She doubts their ability to eat with those beards. They try everything, but magic doesn't run on her. Stunned, they stare at each other, and that's when she finds an opening. Stirrer in each hand, she runs forward, pokes their eyes. One time. She will continue to defend that she was doing so once, and that too only for the Urananite, and not to defend Axis's honor, no matter how Axis says otherwise. She definitely does not stab them repeatedly with broken glass. Axis finishes stirring the mine into something more portable. She throws him one of the sample bags that she brought with her that are used for carrying radioactive material. He catches it with suspiciously good aim, stuffing the entire fucking contents of an entire fucking mine into a single bag. She turns back to the wizards, wanting to inflict maximum damage on them before she leaves this shithole. Even actual assholes at thriving bacteria. This one only had controlling germs. Polaris, come quick, he shouts. He's focusing and trying not to lose his focus because he doesn't want to wash this up. She runs forward, grabbing his hand. The two wizards, however, choose that moment to recover from her stabbing and rush forward. She throws one of the vials on them, breaking it on one staff and splashing the other. Just as they run forward, Axis snaps his fingers and they see the two guards fall down due to their cloaks being tangled up. Just as she crosses the boundary from one world to another, she hurls the acid-like things at them. Their screams as they land in her apartment ring in her ears like music. Polaris is sad to see Axis go. She throws himself into her work, but her life just seems dull without him glitter bombing her life at every turn. We'll probably see each other again sometime, Don't get too sad. Your work is important. Focus on it, he says as he leaves. When she comes home from the lab, though, one time, he's in her house yet again. What are you doing here? She asks. She hopes it's not the answer she knows it's going to be. I physically couldn't go back. They've banished me. In every sense of the word. Every time I've tried to return home, I hit a wall. They're keeping me out. I think I've just lost my home, my work, my everything. He's shaking. Hey, it's okay. We'll figure it out, she says, mentally taking the note to start looking into multiverse theories and finding a way to get him back home, even if that's the last thing she does. Even if it ruins her. Till then, you can stay with me. The first few days are hard for him, adjusting to a world that's so different from his own. He doesn't know how to build a new life from nothing, but he tries, and he figures that with enough practice, he might just be able to get it one day.